Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day. This portion of the video, this segment is going to be the quick and dirty on this guy right here. This is the Monikala Knives Dolphin model. To start off, 50 bucks flat, only available on Amazon. I will link it down below because I think it's worth the look or the pickup if you're interested in something that is like this. The blade here, we have 14C28N, heavily branded right there with the model name, of course, and then Monikala, their stamp on this side here. Full titanium frame lock, hardened steel insert and over travel stop, non-reversible deep carry clip, but it's not actually sitting in your pocket deep carry. Little standoff, snow back spacer, decent D10. I think this is a good little compact size titanium frame lock flipper here. My absolute biggest negative is how thick and how poorly this knife was ground on the bevel here. So it is just really robust. Now again, that could be a good thing because if you want a little bit more stability behind the edge, then this is gonna be, good. But for me personally, for how compact it is, how thin it is in hand, and while it's still being very well rounded off and very well shaped for ergonomic purposes, the thickness behind the edge definitely kills it for me. But that's really the only actual downside to this model. Besides that, I think that this is still an extremely well-built knife for 50 bucks, especially with the materials that they have here. But that concludes the quick and dirty. Alrighty, so if you decided to hang around past the quick and dirty segment, welcome. This is where it gets a little bit more detail oriented. We're going to start off with taking the weight. As we already mentioned, the price, this thing is 50 bucks on Amazon. 3.8 ounces. I think that it is a little dense, but it's not that big of a deal for its size. Taking a look at the internals of this thing, there is zero attempt for any sort of weight relieving milling. The scales are thin enough, but even still, we have seen that it is possible to do weight relieving on scales like this before. But for what it costs, more milling time equals more money. The blade is a little gunked up and the unit is a little dirty because, I mean, hey, it's a knife and I actually use the damn thing. Let's do some size comparisons, starting off with some smaller ones here. We have a Native 5 lightweight by Spyderco. It is damn near the same tip to tail. Pyrite Light CGRB. Here is the Vaker by Migron Knives. Do a couple more. Vision FG by Civivi. CMB Main Knives Predator. Again, this Dolphin model is a very small and quite compact. Immediately, I know a lot of people are going to say, make it bigger. And you know what? I'm right there with you. I think that this thing could have been a lot nicer for, what it has to offer, because it is small. You can tell that this is a small thing in hand. I wear large to extra large size gloves, but I do have slim fingers, so I don't typically run into any major ergonomic issues or, like feeling for hot spots or just like getting like a full grip on this thing. You can see that my pinky kind of rests in that spot right there, but that's well knocked down in all corners, so it doesn't feel uncomfortable by any means. There's some well needed jimping here on the spine, and it was executed quite nicely. There's also this dip and a little bit of curve done, not a full actual crown spine, but it is very well knocked down, and to rest your thumb, it is a perfect fit. The only thing is that I do actually feel like my thumb is really having to reach out there because I'm being kept so far back because of the flipper tab. Talking about the blade, I mentioned in the quick and dirty that really my only major downside to this knife is that in combination with the ergonomic design and the overall size and stature of this knife, the biggest downside is how thick the grind actually is, and it's actually quite inconsistent. You could see in the light a little bit how it kind of like waves, so that's just a little quality control thing. I'm sure they have other units that are probably a better example of what they're actually capable of. I do now own 3 units from this company, Monikala Knives, and I have seen inconsistencies all over the place. This was my first ever unit that I have heavily modified, the Monikala Assault Team Model 1. I think that maybe for some potential copyright issues, they may have recently changed the name of this. I don't know, and I really don't care. But it is a really sweet knife for the price. This thing comes in about 40, maybe 45 bucks at most. But how is it that this knife, that arguably has more milling and more complications to it, is cheaper than this thing? Things aren't really making sense. This was produced well before all the major tariffs. And on this channel, we don't do a whole lot of talking about politics and all that kind of bullshit, because I like to live in La La Land and just focus on the knives, because that's what's important. But the Monikala Assault Team Model 1, as well as a 2 and 3, were all products produced and, sold before tariffs. This thing was produced after and sold after the tariffs. So I think it's still pretty impressive that for only $5 more, they're still able to produce something that is, while it is very simple and has less complications, and I'm talking about this has a compound grind. So you have a flat at the tip for stability and a hollow for slicing. The hollows are very inconsistent. I'll show you that up close in just a sec. But they offered this model with studs and a flipper. Really aggressive jimping on this model, but they have made a huge improvement and softened it down over here. This has holes as well as like not countersunk, but they're cleaned up. They look really nice. There's no jagged edges. All the hardware feels damn near the same all across the board. I will say that they've switched to like semi-polished hardware, at least for the body screws on the Dolphin model versus the Assault Team 1. These are a little bit more like blasted screws, but the finishing work is, again, damn near the same with some major improvements in solidity. This model, this particular unit, my first experience with the company, no matter what I've done to this, I will always have the tiniest bit of up and down play. And then over a year later, I buy the same exact knife all over again, and magically it's gone, and it doesn't have any up and down play. And the pivot hole, not the pivot hole, but the detent hole lash that is present in this unit is no longer present in this. Could it still develop in the future? Yeah, sure, it can, just like with any other knife. But again, 14C28 end, hollow grind, flat grind up here, really nice executed jimping, quality studs with some good texturing, a flipper tab that has jimping, right? It's not the best, but it has it. Holes in the blade, well skeletonized, everything is very well finished, no jagged edges, a hardened steel insert and over travel stop, deep carry bent clip. There's a lot of stuff going on here for 40 to 45 bucks. So this is like a super, super sweet deal of a knife. My first unit, I went ahead and did a flipper tab chop, and it was my first ever attempt at doing that, as well as making a forward finger choil. As you can see, I tailored it to my preference at the time, and looking back at it, I should have made it a lot wider, but I was too scared to chew away more than I needed to. This edge has super laid back. I think this is it's got to be like a 17 or 18 degree edge. It's wide, but it doesn't look comical. A little bit inconsistent from side to side. You can tell because of the hollow grind and how it's shaped up here with all the facets to the blade, all the different grinds. And then in comparison to this one, this hollow goes up much further and much higher. So technically, this newer unit will probably perform better than an older one, even though they're supposed to be the same exact thing. Now, with having my experience with these two, this also has skiff bearings in it, so it's like stupid smooth, right? Skiff discount, JTT10, use it for whatever the hell you want. I'm willing to bet that maybe they do have detent a little softer, a little stronger, maybe they have their grinds a little bit better, maybe a little bit thinner. I don't know, but there are a lot of things that are kind of up in the air when it comes to a brand that literally only has 3 models. This thing is perfectly centered, very easy to take apart. It has caged, garaged, internal, whatever the proper term is, There's a stop pin that runs on tracks that's milled inside of the titanium, which proves that they can mill titanium for weight relieving. They just decided not to for cost-cutting measures and time saving, of course. But they have done it so to where you have minimal to no side to side when the knife is properly tuned. Now, if I remember correctly, I think the detent on this was on the lighter side, I think, and I probably tuned it up to be a little bit snappier, not to, you know, irritate my finger much, but I just the way that the flipper tab is shaped, again, going back to the whole thing about me not liking flipper tab deployment knives, I've had to just endure that because that's the only way to interact with this knife. Well, they have proved that they can do multi-deployment knives very well. So they have jimping on here, and it was a very poor attempt of jimping. Finer cut jimping is most definitely needed for a short and stubby flipper tab like this, as well as the relation of height and what is it called, leverage, when it comes to the shape, the design, the leverage point in correlation with the pivot here. They're flat, they're right next to each other, so you need to have a really well tuned detent to have that break, to have enough buildup of energy to deploy the blade. The detent is very well tuned, and even after having this thing for a little while and messing around with it, the pivot hasn't smoothened out all that much, and there is a lot of pivot slop. You can hear that. So what I'm doing is I'm just jamming the disengaged blade and yoinking on that pivot there. So it's not a perfect fit. I can't expect that. Cannot expect at $50, which is fine. I'm not going to harsh on this knife for that. But what I will say is that designing small knives, I guess this portion would be specifically speaking to the designers and the company directly. If you're going to design a small subcompact knife like this, whether it's for tactical or utility purposes, flipper tabs are not the way to go, because you want to have as much ergonomic freedom as possible. Flipper tab is only gonna get in the way. Put a stud or a hole or a freaking stud disc or just, I don't know, a wave feature, anything else but a damn flipper tab, because again, not just taking away from the visual appeal, which is subjective, I understand, but coming from a ergonomic standpoint, it is a little bit restraining when you only have to be like beneath that flipper tab there. They got a lot of good with this. Like, it's a good looking knife. Just imagine it without the flipper tab and a stud or a hole or something, which is completely fine, because imagine there's a stud right there. If I hold this, the shouldering of the tie doesn't actually contact anything, as well as the other side, it is completely open. So this will be receiving a stud modification in the future, so I can practice doing that as well. Hey, the knife is $50, whatever. You know, if I mess it up, I mess it up, and there's a stupid hole in a blade where it shouldn't be. Of course, I'm gonna chop off this awful flipper tab and open up a nice little sharpening choil. I'm gonna knock off enough material to kind of follow the curvature of the shouldering of the tie right here and kind of round it out in a way so that way I can actually potentially get a forward finger choil where my index finger will be mainly resting and wrapping around this shouldering here of the tie. So that is how I genuinely think this knife should have been designed. Yes, you would be losing a little bit of blade length, but that's fine. The knife is already small. What is losing, you know, a 1/4 inch of usable blade? Let's see how big the actual blade is. It is exact cutting edge is 3 inches. So there are plenty of successful, super successful models out there that have just under 3 inches of available cutting edge that are more ergonomically thought out. There are clearly a lot of cost-cutting measures that have gone into this, but this could have been so much better if just a little bit more effort was put into this. It's not something that's a one and done knife, and I can't expect that. That's a lot of pressure to put on a company that only has 3 freaking models. I don't think that they sought out to make a perfect one and done knife, but I don't think that this one was thought out as well as their most successful model, the Assault Team Model 1. I feel like a lot of thought was put into this knife. With or without the flipper tab, I mean, ergonomically, this is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And with how, you know, the blade is done with the different grinds here, it looks cool and it's functional. So I think that they just kind of pooped something out just so that people don't forget about them. I think that that's what this is. This is a little, you know, don't forget me poop knife. If you would like to potentially win this knife, because this could be something that I can customize and then give away. Knives of that go through that process where, you know, I buy it and I customize it heavily and do like cool stuff with it, with whatever I can or I am capable of doing. It will be given away to my top tier Patreon members. Again, the Patreon will be linked down below for anybody who is interested in supporting. Those memberships also come with a plethora of other services as well that I provide. So if you're interested, go check it out. But that's where giveaways and cool stuff happen for those kinds of people right there. So again, if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed already, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because I put more videos and content coming you guys this way. That being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.